Every life holds within it a hidden key, a single spark of divine authority that waits for the voice to call it forth. We walk through the world often believing that power lies outside of us, in circumstance, in fortune, in the favor of others. Yet, the truth is more radiant. The word, spoken with unwavering faith, becomes law. The tongue is the scepter of the soul, and with it, kingdoms rise or fall. There comes a sacred moment when one command, born not from fear but from alignment with the infinite, sweeps away the shadows and establishes a new order of light. The universe is not governed by chance but by exact and immutable law. Every word is a seed, planted in the fertile soil of the unseen, destined to bear fruit after its kind. When the word is careless, it breeds confusion. When the word is doubtful, it brings delay. But when the word is clear, precise, and backed with inner knowing, it carries the full weight of heavenly decree. That one command, uttered with conviction, does not falter, does not wander. It moves straight to the heart of creation, and creation obeys. It is the command of faith that changes everything. Faith does not argue with appearances. Faith does not bow to seeming defeat. Faith looks upon the storm and says, "Peace, be still." And the storm, compelled by higher authority, dissolves into calm. The voice that speaks such a command does not rely on its own strength, but on the eternal fountain from which all strength flows. It is not the loudness of the word, but the certainty behind it that makes mountains move and seas part. When fear speaks, it multiplies itself. When doubt speaks, it binds the feet with chains. But when the word of power is spoken, all chains dissolve, and the soul is set free. This command may be as simple as, "I walk in abundance," or, "I am divinely guided." Once released, the unseen forces arrange themselves to prove it true. That is why one command, uttered in the right spirit, can change everything. It sets in motion a chain of events that the mind could never plan, and the heart could never imagine. Consider the seed. One moment it lies dormant, silent, unseen. Yet within it is the whole pattern of a mighty tree. All it awaits is the command of the sun, the pull of the earth, the call of life. In the same way, every soul carries within it the hidden pattern of its perfect destiny. The command spoken in alignment with truth awakens that pattern, calling forth health where there was sickness, wealth where there was lack, joy where there was sorrow. The transformation is not forced, it is inevitable, for the law always fulfills itself once the command is given. Thus, the power lies not in many words, but in the right word, spoken once with authority. That one command becomes the bridge between the visible and the invisible, between longing and fulfillment, between the life imagined and the life lived. The word is law. Every utterance carries the invisible stamp of authority. For the spoken word is not merely sound passing through air, but a vibration charged with creative power. When a command is spoken with conviction, it does not linger in uncertainty. It moves directly into the unseen, impressing itself upon the great substance from which all forms arise. To realize that the word is law is to awaken to the understanding that every declaration plants its seed in the garden of life, and each seed must bring forth after its kind. Just as a farmer trusts that wheat sown will yield wheat, so too does the universe unfailingly yield results according to the nature of the words spoken. The careless word, the fearful word, the doubtful word, all return bearing fruit in likeness to themselves. Yet the inspired word, the fearless command spoken in alignment with divine truth, returns magnified with blessings and unfolds events that seem almost miraculous to the untrained eye. When the soul first grasps this principle, a great reverence is born for the words that cross the lips. For centuries, sages have reminded humanity that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and this is no poetic fancy but an eternal law. To speak is to command, to declare is to decree. Even those who are unaware of this law live under its dominion, for law is impartial and does not bend to ignorance. Words of lack and limitation become orders carried out by unseen forces, weaving circumstances that mirror poverty and obstruction. Words of harmony and abundance issue their command to the same forces, and doors open, opportunities multiply, and supply appears from unexpected sources. The reason the word is law lies in its origin. Speech is not an invention of man, but an expression of the divine image within. The breath of life bestowed upon humanity is the same breath that spoke creation into being at the beginning of time. Every spoken word is a miniature echo of that primal command, carrying within it the power to call forth or cast aside, to build or to destroy. When this is understood, it becomes impossible to dismiss words as idle or insignificant. Every sentence becomes an instrument of creation, and every command carries within it the decree of destiny. Those who master this law do not waste words, nor do they scatter them recklessly. They know that to complain is to command more of what is complained about. They know that to rehearse misfortune in speech is to engrave it deeper upon the fabric of experience. They guard their tongues not from repression but from wisdom, shaping their words as carefully as an artist shapes marble. A sculptor chips away the excess to reveal the figure hidden within the stone. Likewise the soul, by its spoken word, chips away all that is false and reveals the perfect design hidden within the infinite pattern of life. The mind, when undisciplined, tends to argue with appearances, declaring what it sees and reinforcing limitation. But the word that is law does not echo appearances, it declares higher truth. To look upon scarcity and say, "I walk in abundance," is to exercise authority over circumstance. To see illness and declare, "I am whole and strong," is to issue a command that transcends the visible and summons the unseen into manifestation. The law does not bend to appearances, but reshapes appearances according to the spoken command. The authority of the word lies not in the noise of sound, but in the certainty of spirit behind it. A word spoken with wavering doubt is like a seed scattered on barren ground, unlikely to take root. But a word spoken with absolute conviction becomes a decree sealed in heaven and carried out on earth. The certainty does not come from the human will but from union with divine law. It is the recognition that the creative substance of the universe is listening, responding, and obeying. When the word is spoken in that consciousness, nothing can resist it, for the entire cosmos aligns itself to fulfill it. This understanding transforms the way one approaches every aspect of life. Decisions are no longer driven by fear but by command. Instead of begging for change, one speaks change. Instead of pleading for supply, one commands supply. Instead of wishing for harmony, one declares harmony. In this way, the soul takes its rightful place as heir to divine authority, not as a servant to chance but as a co-creator with the infinite. There is a vast difference between idle chatter and the word that is law. Idle chatter scatters energy in every direction, producing little more than noise. But the word that is law is precise, focused, and directed like an arrow to its target. It does not waver, it does not falter, and it does not return empty. When it is loosed, it strikes its mark and brings forth results in exact proportion to the faith with which it was spoken. This is why a single sentence, spoken in the right spirit, can accomplish more than hours of pleading or days of anxious effort. The soul that learns to live by this principle walks in mastery. It does not deny the storm but commands calm. It does not shrink before obstacles but declares the way clear. It does not surrender to limitation but calls forth supply from the infinite storehouse. This is not arrogance but obedience, for to command in harmony with divine law is to align oneself with the eternal rhythm of the universe. Just as the sun commands the dawn, and the tide answers the pull of the moon, so too does life answer the voice of one who knows the word is law. Faith overrides appearances. It is the unseen strength that looks beyond the surface of things and calls forth the deeper reality that waits to be revealed. The eye of flesh may behold confusion, lack, sickness, or delay, but faith does not bow to these shadows. It knows that appearances are temporary forms, fleeting shapes of thought and circumstance that have no power to withstand the eternal truth. Faith is the inner vision that pierces the veil of illusion, the unwavering assurance that what is true in the invisible will soon clothe itself in form. When one walks in faith, appearances become like mist before the rising sun, dissolving as the light of conviction shines upon them. Faith is not a fragile hope, nor is it the anxious desire that trembles at the first sign of difficulty. True faith is a calm knowing, a silent authority that refuses to be moved by evidence that contradicts its command. When the seas of life roar and the winds beat upon the house, faith does not run in fear, but stands firm, declaring the outcome long before it is visible. Appearances may scream defeat, but faith proclaims victory. Appearances may show lack, but faith announces abundance. Appearances may reveal the body in weakness, but faith affirms wholeness and strength. And because the word is law, the declaration of faith always overrides the evidence of the senses, rewriting the script of circumstance until the truth is made manifest. The power of faith lies in its refusal to negotiate with appearances. The senses say, "Look at what is before you, this is reality." Faith answers, "I see a higher reality, and that alone is true." To the senses, this may appear as folly, but in truth, it is wisdom, for all that is visible first began in the invisible. The chair upon which one sits was once an idea. The building in which one stands was once unseen. The body itself was once only a pattern carried in the unseen blueprint of life. Faith knows that the invisible is the womb of all creation, and appearances are merely the temporary clothing of thoughts and words. To cling to appearances is to cling to shadows. To cling to faith is to align with the eternal source from which all form flows. In the silence of faith there is great power. It does not need to shout, nor does it seek constant reassurance from outer signs. It rests in certainty, knowing that law is at work, bringing forth what has already been spoken. The one who walks by appearances is tossed about like a leaf in the wind, swayed by every change of circumstance. But the one who walks by faith is like a tree planted by rivers of water, unmoved by drought, unmoved by storm, secure in the knowledge that supply flows endlessly from the unseen. Appearances may show barren soil, but faith perceives the harvest already on its way. Faith overrides appearances because it holds fast to principle. The principle is unchanging, while appearances are shifting and unstable. The principle of abundance never alters, though appearances may show lack. The principle of health never weakens, though appearances may reveal sickness. The principle of harmony never wavers, though appearances may speak of discord. Faith clings to principle and by doing so, compels appearances to realign with truth. In this way, faith becomes the bridge between what is and what must be, pulling the unseen into the realm of the visible through the steadfast refusal to accept anything less than divine order. The mastery of faith is not found in struggling against appearances, but in calmly dismissing them as powerless. The patient who sees a diagnosis of illness and yet declares, "I am whole," does not deny the appearance but denies its authority. The merchant who looks upon empty shelves and declares, "I prosper and succeed," does not ignore what the eyes behold but affirms the higher law that governs supply. The traveler who sees the path blocked and yet proclaims, "My way is clear," does not pretend the obstacle does not exist but commands the unseen forces to remove it. Faith is not blind, it is visionary. It sees what is hidden to the senses and brings it forth into manifestation. The one who relies upon appearances is forever at their mercy. When appearances are favorable, they rejoice. When appearances are unfavorable, they despair. Their mood and destiny shift with the tides of circumstance, and they live as servants to the external. But the one who walks by faith is master of circumstance. Their joy does not depend upon visible signs, but upon the certainty of truth. Their peace does not waver when storms arise, for they know the storm is but an appearance, destined to yield to the command of faith. This constancy is the secret strength of those who triumph over conditions that overwhelm others, for they are not ruled by what they see but by what they know. Faith is a higher sight, an inner hearing, a deeper touch. It perceives the invisible supply, hears the whisper of guidance, feels the presence of health and strength long before the body reveals it. This inner perception overrides the outer senses, and the outer world must eventually conform. Appearances are like actors upon a stage, playing their parts according to the script handed them. Faith rewrites the script, and the actors of circumstance must obey, taking on new roles, speaking new lines, performing new outcomes. Faith is the commander, appearances are the soldiers. When faith speaks, appearances must fall in line, no matter how rebellious they may seem at first. This is the reason why faith the size of a mustard seed is said to move mountains. For the seed contains within it the certainty of growth, the knowing that no appearance of barren soil can prevent its destiny. Once the seed of faith is planted and nurtured, it breaks through the crust of appearances and rises toward the light, fulfilling its promise without fail. One command awakens destiny. Within every soul lies a divine blueprint, a perfect pattern waiting to be revealed in time and space. Most wander through life unaware of this hidden design, swayed by circumstances, governed by appearances, repeating the stories of their environment. Yet the destiny within does not vanish, it waits dormant, like a seed beneath the earth. The one command, spoken in faith and alignment with truth, is the spark that stirs it to life, the call that summons forth the greatness that has slept within. In that instant, the sleeping pattern stirs, and all of life begins to rearrange itself to bring forth the fulfillment of the command. The command may be a word of healing, spoken in the face of sickness. It may be a word of freedom, declared while chains still clink at the ankles. It may be a word of abundance, uttered in the midst of emptiness. To the eyes of the world, such declarations may seem absurd, even reckless. Yet it is precisely in these moments that destiny awakens, for the spoken word is the match that ignites the hidden flame. Life does not wait for appearances to agree before moving, life responds to the command that is given in faith, and destiny answers as though it had been waiting all along. The one command carries weight not because of its sound, but because of its authority. It is not the multitude of words that moves the mountain, but the certainty behind the single decree. The soul that has recognized its divine inheritance does not plead or beg, it commands, knowing that the command itself calls forth the infinite power that lies dormant within. Just as the captain of a ship issues orders to the crew, so too does the awakened soul issue the one command, and all of creation bends to obey. Destiny is not something distant, hiding in some faraway future. Destiny is the invisible design, already complete, that waits for recognition. It lies like music in a score, silent until the musician plays. The one command is the hand that lifts the baton, the word that sets the symphony in motion. Suddenly, what was silent begins to sing, and the notes of destiny resound in harmony with the law. The life that once seemed ordinary begins to reveal extraordinary sequences of events, connections, and opportunities that could not have been orchestrated by human effort alone. The awakening of destiny is not always dramatic to the outward eye. Sometimes it begins quietly, as a subtle shift in consciousness, a certainty that life is aligning with something greater. Doors open where there were only walls. Paths appear where there had been only confusion. The right people, the right moments, the right resources, all drawn by the magnetism of the awakened word, converge to support the fulfillment of the command. To the one who speaks it, the path may feel guided by an unseen hand, as though every step has already been prepared in advance. The command does not have to be loud, nor does it require elaborate ritual. It is the simple, clear, unwavering declaration that carries the power. One word, spoken in absolute alignment with truth, awakens forces greater than armies, swifter than time, more certain than any visible promise. That one command is the pivot upon which destiny turns, the moment when the tide shifts, when what once seemed impossible begins to unfold with effortless precision. There are countless souls who walk with greatness asleep within them, never knowing that one command could have stirred it to life. They wait for conditions to change before they speak, not realizing that it is the spoken word that changes conditions. They wait for signs, for evidence, for permission. Yet destiny does not respond to hesitation. Destiny responds to command. Like a servant awaiting instruction, destiny stands at the door, listening for the word that will send it into motion. Until the command is given, it waits in silence, patient but unmoving. The instant the command is spoken, destiny rushes forward, eager to fulfill its appointed role. The command that awakens destiny is always aligned with the highest truth. It is never a selfish demand or a vain boast. It is the declaration of the soul's rightful inheritance, the claim upon the good that has always belonged to it. To say, "I walk in divine abundance," is not arrogance, it is recognition. To say, "I am guided by perfect wisdom," is not presumption, it is alignment. To say, "I am free," even when bound, is to affirm the deeper reality that no chain can ultimately withstand. The command awakens destiny because it harmonizes with the eternal pattern of life. And that pattern is always for wholeness, for freedom, for abundance, for joy. When the one command is spoken, the unseen powers of life immediately set to work. Circumstances begin to shift, often in ways the mind cannot predict. Old patterns fall away, new paths emerge, opportunities unfold. Sometimes it may seem as though difficulties arise in response to the command. But these are merely the remnants of old conditions, breaking apart to make room for the new. The wise do not shrink back when the shaking comes. They recognize it as evidence that destiny has awakened, that the old is dissolving so that the new may be born. To awaken destiny with a single command requires courage. It requires the willingness to speak in faith even when everything visible contradicts the word. Yet once the word is spoken, the power is unleashed, and destiny begins its inevitable course. The soul that has once given the command cannot return to slumber. It is carried forward on the current of its own decree. The command becomes a torch, lighting the path ahead, and every step reveals more of the hidden pattern that was always waiting within. Power lies in certainty, not repetition. The strength of a word does not come from how many times it is spoken, but from the unwavering conviction with which it is declared. A single command, spoken with absolute faith, carries more force than countless phrases murmured with doubt. The universe does not answer the volume of words, it answers the vibration behind them. Certainty is that vibration. It is the quiet authority that needs no rehearsal, no endless reiteration, for it knows that what is spoken once in truth is already fulfilled in the unseen. Repetition without certainty is like scattering seeds upon rocky ground, hoping one may take root by chance. Certainty is like planting a single seed in rich soil, knowing it will grow because the law of growth is unfailing. Many speak words of affirmation again and again, but their hearts are filled with fear, and so their repetition becomes an echo of uncertainty rather than a decree of power. The law does not respond to empty repetition. It responds to faith-filled command. It does not matter how many times the seed is planted, if each time it is pulled up to see if it has sprouted. The true act is to plant it once with confidence, water it with expectation, and allow the unseen forces to bring forth the harvest. Certainty is not loud, it is calm. It does not shout to convince itself, nor does it anxiously demand proof. Certainty rests, knowing the law is exact and cannot fail. When the word is spoken with certainty, it is as though the universe itself has heard and sealed the decree. The soul that knows this does not need to repeat, it watches, waits, and prepares to receive. The power lies not in many words but in the clear, focused word that springs from conviction. The difference between certainty and repetition is the difference between command and pleading. Pleading says, "I hope this will come to pass." Command says, "This is established now." Pleading repeats in desperation, trying to force results by sheer persistence. Command speaks once with authority, and then acts as though the result is inevitable. To plead is to affirm lack, to command is to affirm possession. When one understands this, the need for repetition falls away, replaced by the peace of certainty. The mind often craves repetition because it doubts. It fears that a single declaration may not be enough, that somehow the law of the universe requires persuasion. But law does not need persuasion. Fire does not need to be begged to burn, nor water persuaded to flow. Gravity does not need to be reminded to pull. So too, the creative law of words does not need endless insistence. It requires only one word spoken with the weight of conviction to set the process in motion. Repetition may soothe the doubting mind, but it is certainty that moves the unseen. Certainty is born from alignment with truth. When one is aligned with the eternal principle of abundance, health, harmony, and freedom, the word spoken carries that authority. It is not the force of personal will but the power of universal law that makes the word effective. The soul becomes like a channel through which the divine decree flows, and in that moment of certainty, the word is law. It is as though the voice that speaks is no longer the small voice of the individual, but the greater voice of truth itself. That is why one command, when certain, overrides years of limitation and sweeps away obstacles as though they never existed. Certainty transforms the very atmosphere of being. The one who speaks with certainty carries an aura of calm authority. They do not argue with appearances, nor do they wrestle with doubts. Their word is quiet but final, simple but irresistible. Others may feel this presence and sense that things will align simply because of the strength of that inner assurance. This is the unseen magnetism of certainty. It not only moves invisible forces but also influences the visible world, drawing people and events into harmony with the declared outcome. The soul that has discovered certainty no longer fears delay. It understands that once the word has been spoken in truth, the result is inevitable, whether it appears swiftly or unfolds gradually. Repetition would suggest that the command has not been heard, but certainty knows it has already been accomplished in the unseen. The farmer does not plant a seed and dig it up daily to check its progress. He plants, waters, and trusts. In the same way, certainty speaks once and trusts, knowing that law never fails. Repetition driven by fear scatters energy. Certainty gathers it. Repetition sends mixed signals, declaring faith one moment and doubt the next. Certainty is consistent, unwavering, single-pointed. It does not waver with appearances, nor is it distracted by delay. It knows that the moment the word was spoken, the process began, and nothing can hinder its completion. In this way, certainty holds the power of persistence without the need for repeated speech. Its persistence is not in words but in belief. The difference may be seen in the actions that follow the word. The one who repeats without certainty continues to act as though nothing has changed, living in the same patterns, expecting the same results. The one who speaks with certainty begins immediately to align actions with the spoken word, preparing for the result as though it were already here. Certainty acts on the invisible promise, while repetition waits for outer proof before moving. In this way, certainty hastens manifestation, for it lives in the reality of the word already fulfilled. The stillness of certainty is a great power. It does not rush. It does not strive. It does not scatter energy in many directions. It stands like a mountain, immovable, commanding all lesser conditions to align. This is why even a whisper, when spoken with certainty, carries more weight than endless cries of doubt. The whisper declares what already is. The endless cry declares what is not yet. The law responds accordingly, producing according to the vibration carried. The invisible always precedes the visible. Every form, every event, every circumstance that unfolds in life begins first in the realm that cannot be seen with the physical eye. The invisible is the seedbed of creation, the silent blueprint from which the visible world is drawn. To believe only in what can be touched, measured, or observed is to mistake the fruit for the tree, the shadow for the substance. What appears in time and space is nothing more than the outpicturing of what was first established in thought, in word, in spirit. The visible is the effect, the invisible is the cause. Once this is understood, it becomes clear that to master life, one must first master the unseen. The invisible realm is the field of pure potential. It contains within it infinite possibilities, waiting to be called into form by the word of faith. Every invention that has changed the world was first invisible, existing only in the mind of the one who dared to imagine it. Every healing that has restored a body was first invisible, an inner shift in consciousness that later expressed itself in flesh and bone. Every fortune that has been built began as an invisible idea, a vision carried in the silence of thought before it appeared in the outer world. The law is unchanging. Nothing can come into visibility that was not first planted in invisibility. This understanding gives power over appearances, for appearances are never the final word. They are temporary manifestations, reflections of what was once believed or declared. To fight appearances directly is to struggle with shadows. The wise do not battle with the visible. They return to the invisible and speak the command that reshapes it. By changing the unseen pattern, the visible must inevitably shift to match it. Just as a reflection in water cannot be altered without moving the object above it, so the visible cannot change without a shift in the invisible. The invisible always precedes the visible, yet many live as though the visible is the source. They labor endlessly to change conditions by force, never realizing that the conditions they see are only the harvest of seeds already sown. They complain of lack while continuing to plant words of limitation in the invisible soil. They lament illness while feeding the unseen pattern of fear and weakness. They protest against discord while rehearsing thoughts of conflict and judgment. In doing so, they unknowingly strengthen the invisible causes that perpetuate the visible effects. Freedom comes when the cycle is broken. When the word of truth is spoken into the invisible, and the pattern is rewritten at its source. To know that the invisible precedes the visible is to live with unshakable assurance. Even when nothing outward appears to support the word, the one who understands the law remains steadfast, knowing the invisible has already been set in motion. Delay is not denial. It is simply the time required for the unseen seed to sprout and bear fruit in the visible. The farmer does not doubt his harvest because the field looks bare a week after planting. He knows the invisible process is unfolding beneath the soil. So too, the soul that has spoken the word knows that unseen forces are at work, shaping the conditions that will soon emerge. Faith rests in this truth. It does not demand immediate proof, for it understands that the invisible is the true beginning. When a command is spoken with certainty, it is already accomplished in the invisible. The visible will follow in its appointed time, as surely as dawn follows night. This is why it is said that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The evidence lies in the invisible, and the visible is but its eventual shadow. The invisible is not vague or uncertain, it is precise, governed by exact law. Just as the acorn contains the blueprint of the oak tree, so every spoken word carries within it the pattern of what it must become. The invisible design is perfect and complete before the visible begins its unfolding. This is why the one who understands the law does not waver when appearances seem contrary. They know the blueprint is already established, and the visible must conform. The builder does not doubt the house because the lot is empty, he has the plan in hand. The invisible plan guarantees the visible outcome. The invisible is also the realm of protection and supply. One may stand in a place of seeming danger or lack, yet the invisible already holds safety and abundance. To the senses, it may appear absent, but in truth it is present, waiting to be called forth by faith. The flock that appeared in the wilderness for the wanderer, the coin found in the mouth of the fish, the oil that did not run dry, each was an instance of the invisible supply, manifesting into the visible through the command of faith. The law has not changed. What is needed always exists first in the unseen, and the word of power draws it into the seen. Those who rely only on the visible live in limitation, for they see only what has already been created. They chase after effects, never touching causes. Their vision is bound to the past, for the visible is always the outcome of what has already been thought or spoken. But those who rely on the invisible live in freedom, for they operate at the level of cause. They plant seeds deliberately, shaping the unseen with words of truth, knowing that the visible must eventually mirror it. Their vision is turned to the future, for they see beyond appearances into the limitless field of possibility. This is the secret of transformation. To change the visible, one must command the invisible. To shift circumstances, one must speak into the unseen. To awaken new possibilities, one must affirm them as already real in the invisible, and then act in harmony with that affirmation. The visible world bends to the invisible decree, and in time, the transformation becomes evident to all.